Sure. I'm Patricia Hooper. My husband Thomas and I own and operate ASL Pewter. All the pewter that you see in the shop here is made right here by him and me. We're the shop. And today's event is our 16th annual Traditional Artisans Showcase and Sale. We invite artists who are in the Midwest who have been selected by Early American Life magazine for their directory of traditional crafts to come in and set up booths in our shop and sell their wares. Part of being in the directory of traditional crafts means that all of the artists' work has been judged museum quality. So we're very pleased to have some of the best in their fields here in our shop today.
My name is Mike O'Conachie, that's short for Michelle, and I own Stone Hollow Studio. I'm from Eureka, Missouri, and I do scrimshaw, hand etching. I do all of my work with just a scribe, so each line is hand cut, and then I put ink in. This is an 18th and 19th century art that was done by sailors on whaling ships, and I interpret it in more contemporary ways. Scrimshaw was a sailor's art done in the 18th and 19th centuries as a way to pass time when they were on board whaling ships. And so this particular box depicts not only a ship, but all of the sea creatures that sailors might have encountered. And to get the lines in scrimshaw, to make it darker, the lines have to be placed very closely together. To make it lighter, they're spread out farther. So to darken a piece like this takes many, many hours.
Cathy Grafton, and I'm from Pontiac, Illinois. And I'm working with silk ribbon and silk thread. You should show the pieces. And one of my little specialties are bees and beehives. And it makes pretty flowers, things to hang on the wall. Been doing it a long, long time, and I do a lot of historic festivals. So most of my designs are based on Shaker or early American patterns and designs. We've got some over here. So we hope you'll come see us tomorrow or whenever. Because that's actually a wool piece, wool on linen, and that is a section of the Bayou Tapestry. I do a lecture about the Bayou Tapestry, and that is a little tiny piece of it. The original one is 20 inches wide, just like that is, and 220 feet long, and it tells the whole story of William the Conqueror and Harold meeting, and then eventually the Battle of Hastings. So it's a big part of history, and it's almost 1,000-year old, the original one. It's called the Bayou Tapestry, but it's an embroidery. It's not a tapestry. And I've had an interest in it since I was about 8 years old. So I've been to see it in France 20 times. And so I really enjoy talking to people about it because it's a wonderful piece of history. And they learned a lot from it. They learned that they had stirrups back then, and there's little scenes of harvesting and hunting that are in the borders of the tapestry. So there's a lot of history along with it. It's a fascinating little piece.
Yes, we're Vernon and Cathy Depow from Jerseyville, Illinois. My wife does all the hand quilting that you see here and all the miniature quilts, and I do all the wood carving. And I've been wood carving since 7th grade shop class, where I first learned how to do some wood carving and do a lot of patriotic wood carvings. And
I've just been quilting forever. It was something I saw my grandma doing and decided I wanted to do it also, but I didn't always need a great big quilt, so I started doing little ones.
they take as much work, but everything we do is by hand, so we don't use any machinery. Cathy uses a sewing machine on some of her pieces, and the last time my pieces get touched by a machine is with the bandsaw when I cut them out of the stock. But otherwise everything else is done by hand. We do a lot of historical events, so Cathy uses a lot of historic, accurate
Reproduction fabrics.
reproduction fabrics, and I do a lot of historic patterns of eagles and patriotic pieces as well. Gold pieces are real gold leaf.
You always have some interesting suggestions on what you should do with your.
Actually made a custom eagle for a lady in Maine. She wanted it with gold leaf and she wanted the words. So this eagle is covered with real gold. It's a gold leaf that's applied to the piece when it's finished. This eagle was typically done during the early 1800s. When the eagle became a symbol of the United States in 1782, it was being put on merchant ships to show country of origin. It was being put in public buildings. It was being put on other wooden ships, military ships. The big eagle I have behind you here, that says Free Trade and Sailors' Rights, was first commissioned by the U.S. Navy for on their naval vessels. And because we fought the War of 1812 over free trade and sailors' rights with England. The rest of the eagles, this eagle here is typical of a Bellamy eagle, style eagle. He was a carver in Kittery, Maine, who carved eagles and during the 1860s, during the Civil War time period. So I put Abraham Lincoln on the emblem, and he did eagles similar to that. This eagle is also from the early 1800s. This eagle here is patterned after a piece that was called a transom eagle. It hung over the captain's quarters on a wooden ship. Right over the door is where it would hang. I chose to put it into gold leaf. This eagle here is one patterned after an eagle that appears on the top of a poster announcing a debate between then Abraham Lincoln and Stephen Douglas for the Illinois Senate seat. And it appears on there. And here it is in gold. This is an 1806 McIntyre eagle. The 1806 McIntyre eagle was one of the first eagles. Samuel McIntyre was a furniture maker, but he also did some wood carving. And this particular carving was the eagle that was on top of the Philadelphia Custom House. It was a piece that was much larger than this, the original piece, but I have brought it down and illustrated it here. So typically eagles, my eagles have red, white, and blue on them. This one with just the red flags was from the 1850s. And red flags indicated a conflict occurring, so it may have been done during the war with Mexico, because one of the symbols of Mexico is a snake. So the eagle fighting the snake and the conflict of the red flags could have been done during that time. The real historic eagle that I patterned after it did not have all the information, but it did know it was from the 1850s. It kind of correlates with the war with Mexico at that time. So that was some of the patriotic pieces. I also did some Santas. Typically, today we think of what was considered the Coca-Cola illustrated Santa with his red suit. So I've got in here with some packages. In the 1860s, when Santa Claus first started appearing in Harper's Weekly during the Civil War, he was first illustrated with red and white striped pants, a blue coat with white stars. So this is an illustration that Santa would have looked like in the 1860s. Of course, before the 1860s, Santa Claus then, and still today, was known as St. Nicholas. So here I have a St. Nicholas illustrating the earlier Santa and the earlier illustration of what we today call Santa Claus.
A little bit what you do
Hi,
here.
my name is Doug Dawson. My wife Julie, who unfortunately is not with me today, is the primary craftsman with regards to what we have to offer. She does all the cookie cutters here in the style of early American craftsmen, colonial craftsmen. We have candle clips for your Christmas tree, tree toppers, bird houses. A little bit of everything, but our specialty is tin work. Well, I will point out, we, among other things, we have some historical designs that we have borrowed, if you will, from some reference books on colonial tinsmithing, Pennsylvania Dutch tinsmithing, that sort of thing. For instance, This item here, this, to the best of our knowledge, this design is about 200 years old. That was a Pennsylvania tinsmith's rendering of a draft horse. We have a milk cow, which is a historical design that we did not do ourselves. We tweaked it a little bit to suit ourselves, but that was again based on a photograph of some old work from way back around probably the early 1800s. This is one of our designs that I particularly like. I don't know why the little mouse appeals to me. Maybe it's because I live in an old farmhouse and we see them occasionally, much to my wife's chagrin. But the backing plate, which is characteristic of handmade cookie cutters up until about 1850, gives us the opportunity to do some interesting embellishments. For instance, the little tail on the mouse. That will cut partway through the cookie dough that you're baking, and it will leave an imprint on the completed cookie, the baked cookie. So you can use that as your guide for decorating the cookie if you wish, or you can leave it as is. We have lots of designs like that. The dove with the heart. These kind of things here. We have a dog paw, of course, dog bones and dog paws. People love their pets. And we are pretty much doing things the way they were done way back in the late 1700s, early 1800s, with the exception that we are using food-safe tin plate, and the solder that we use is lead-free. We're having fun keeping the tinsmith's craft alive.
All right, whenever you're ready.
Okay, my name is Mchurin. I own Sassafras Creek Originals on St. Mary's Road, and I have the 1840 log cabin Airbnb next door. I make hand-sewn band boxes. These are made in like the early 19th, late 18th century, and they're all hand-sewn using period papers, and then the insides are lined with copies of old antique newspapers like they would have done back in that time period. These would have been used to store anything from laces to gloves to hats, things that you normally put in a drawer now. They would have stored them in boxes, and so that's what I make, all hand sewn. They all are different on the inside. Different papers. This one's made out of fabric. Let's see what's inside this one. There's a ship and a whale inside that one. And then I also paint game boards like the checkers there on the table. And the handmade Moravian stars. And all of this and a lot more is available at my shop.
Do you have any specific piece that you wanted to give a history on here today?
I guess the boxes. So actually the history of the boxes starts back in the Elizabethan age. So like, you know how Queen Elizabeth and Will Shakespeare, they wore those beautiful lace ruffs around their neck. They needed to be stored in the round, so they would store them in boxes like these. And over time, they evolved into glove boxes, hat boxes. They were used well into the 19th century. And most of my boxes are based on the work by a lady named Hannah Davis. She was in Joffrey, New Hampshire, and she was in the 1820s, and she was a woman who had to make her own living. She was an old maid, is what they called her back then. And so she made these boxes from scratch and would take them to town and sell them, and that was her income. So I base my boxes on her boxes. I just love her story. But they go back about 500 years. So, and they're still good today. I mean, you can still store heirlooms in them or whatever, little treasures, give them as a gift box, put a gift inside. Still applicable today.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
All right, my name's Eric Havener. I'm with Lincoln Trail Woodcrafts. We make primarily make shaker boxes, crafts, small furniture, stuff like that. Shakers were a religious community that were mostly in the New England area of the United States, but did trickle down into Kentucky, a little bit into Indiana. But these are the types of boxes we make. They made old boxes. This was basically the Tupperware of the 1800s. We make those. We make quite a few out of different woods, and then we have variations on that, like the baskets, the carriers, different things. So that's about it.
All right. Thank you.